Headlines warning about the imminent collapse of Social Security are everywhere. If you have been paying into the system for decades, it is entirely rational to worry that the money simply will not be there when it is your turn to collect. The system is actually approaching a state called depletion, which operates differently than a total bankruptcy. When depletion occurs, the government does not stop sending checks entirely. The system will continue to collect taxes and pay out benefits, but it will hit a strict mathematical limit on how much it can legally distribute. By law, reaching depletion triggers an automatic, across-the-board benefit cut for every single retiree. A full check immediately shrinks by 20 to 25%. To understand the math behind this cliff, we have to look at how the system was originally built. Social Security operates on a pay-as-you-go model. The taxes deducted from your paycheck today are immediately sent out to fund today's retirees. For decades, the math heavily favored the system. A massive population of young, active workers generated significantly more tax revenue than the smaller pool of retirees actually needed. The government saved that excess cash, funneling it into the Social Security Trust Fund, a massive central reserve savings account. Building this stockpile was a deliberate strategy. Lawmakers knew the population would eventually age, designing this financial buffer for that exact demographic shift. The trust fund was never designed to be the main engine of Social Security. It was always intended to be a backup battery. The core issue we face today is that the backup battery has been activated, and its remaining charge is dropping fast. The math of the pay-as-you-go system began to break down due to a massive demographic inversion. In the mid-20th century, an enormous wave of children was born. Demographers and politicians knew exactly when the baby boom generation would retire and begin drawing benefits en masse. At the same time, the generations that followed had lower birth rates, resulting in a significantly smaller pool of modern workers entering the labor force to support them. We can see the severity of this shift in the worker-to-retiree ratio. Historically, there were about 5 workers supporting every 1 retiree. Today, that ratio has dropped to roughly 2 workers for every beneficiary. At a 2-to-1 ratio, the incoming payroll taxes are no longer enough to cover the total cost of outgoing benefits. A significant shortfall exists every month. Demographics systematically turned a structural surplus into a structural deficit. To cover the gap and keep monthly checks whole, the government now drains a portion of the trust fund constantly. If we follow this trajectory, we reach a specific projected date where the trust fund reserve drops to exactly 0. This graph charts the exact mechanics of that cliff. When the trust fund balance reaches 0 on the bottom axis, the system loses its reserve buffer. The law dictates that the payout line must drop immediately to match the lower tax revenue line. That abrupt drop on the graph is the mechanism that triggers the mandatory 20 to 25% reduction in everyone's benefits. When that reserve is gone, the legal mandate kicks in immediately. Millions of people will instantly lose a quarter of their livelihood at a hard mathematical wall. The solvency crisis is a straightforward math equation, and it has a finite number of solutions. Lawmakers can increase the inputs. They could raise the payroll tax rate, or lift the income cap so higher earners pay more into the system. Alternatively, they can decrease the outputs. This means either reducing monthly benefits directly or raising the full retirement age to delay payouts. We know these policy levers work because we have used them before. In 1983, facing a nearly identical crisis, lawmakers enacted bipartisan structural reforms to save the system. The depletion of the trust fund is a slow-moving, entirely predictable mathematical certainty. The options to fix it are well documented. The only missing variable is the political pressure required to force action before we hit the cliff.